to save $100,000. Oh yeah, yeah. Are you guys still right down on the water?
Yeah, we're right there. Everything's building up around us. We're staying put.
Is that right?
Yeah, we're not going anywhere.
Does the port of Toronto still bring in, like, is there anywhere else that you could move that would be better?
So there could be Hamilton, has a deep water port. I think you got the deep water port for Belgium. But yeah, in Ontario, like, anyway, it's going out east like this. Factory base.
Where does the where does the
Yes. How's everyone doing? We good? All right, it's the afternoon. Lots to get into. It's going to be a great presentation. I want to thank you for joining us here at the speaker stage for the RC show. Definitely want to thank our sponsors, American Express, for making this happen. And we are going to get into our next keynote experience, which is the keynote experience, I should say, which exemplifies the show theme Into the Beyond like you would not imagine, because this is one particular person that's just about, he's done things unlike a lot of people on this planet. In fact, I think he's even left this planet, for that matter. And here to introduce him is Amer Matar, who is the Chief Technology Officer for Touch Bistro, the sponsor. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me well? Yeah? Great. So my name is Amer Matar. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Touch Bistro. We are a proud sponsor of the Restaurant Canada show, and we are proud technology sponsors of the show in particular. At Touch Bistro, restaurants are not only customers for us, they are at the heart and the veins of our employees and everything that we do. Our solutions are built specifically for restaurants. We understand the industry, we understand how difficult it is to operate a restaurant, the thin margins, the long hours, the financial constraints that our operators face, as well as their staff and everything else. So we try and design our solutions to make it easier for them to operate and serve their customers. The industry deserves solutions that are purposely built to satisfy the industry and technology that works within the restaurants, whether it's in QSR, quick service, or whether it's in full table service. And we strive hard to work on these, including integrations and including payment solutions that make sense with partners of ours. So speaking of people that push hard, try hard, push boundaries, prepare relentlessly, and perform under pressure, I'm pleased to introduce the next speaker. But before I do so, I just had a chat. I had a brief discussion with him. He's actually very aware of the restaurant industry, of the hospitality industry. His spouse was a chef that worked in the industry. His daughter worked her school years as a server in the industry, so quite aware of what's going on. He's a Canadian icon who has orbited the Earth and commanded the international space. It's my honor to introduce Colonel Chris Hadfield, and I think we're starting with a video. Thank you.
Hadfield has gone farther and faster than almost anyone in the world. Il est devenu une véritable vedette planétaire grâce aux centaines de photos qu'il a publiées sur les réseaux sociaux depuis l'espace.
Okay, now one towards you.
Oh.
We will have peanut butter honey sandwich in space.
Thanks very much for coming and having a seat. Hello to everybody standing in the back. One or two cameras going. It's great. I want to ask a question. This is a cool place to be talking. So much activity. But what do you hope will happen in your life? Like when it's just you. When you're thinking, when you're dreaming, what do you dream? If from this, it hasn't worked so far for me, but if your life went perfectly from this moment forward, what would happen? For me, that was what I hoped would happen when I was a little kid. For me, that is my personal definition of what my idyllic life would be. And I had that vision when I was this little kid, going to school just over in Oakville at W.H. Warden Elementary School. My 5th grade picture, excellent sweater choice that day, looking good. But I think it's a really important question to ask. What is it that I'm television, Star Trek was on, I was reading science fiction, comic books, and 2001, A Space Odyssey, that movie came out, and the problem was, and maybe it's a common problem, I had a clear vision of what I was dreaming of, but I had no real understanding of what I needed to do in order to take myself to that place of those dreams until something else happened. And when I was that age, a guy took this picture. His name was Mike. And Mike had just gotten his 2 buddies, Neil and Buzz, dressed. And Neil and Buzz were in this ship, about to go down and try and do something that no human being had ever done before. For this little boy, this was like permission to actually think my dreams might be real. Like I thought, if this could actually be happening, then it's not just Star Trek and Space Odyssey. This is a thing that people are doing. But how did we put Mike Collins in a position to take this picture back in the era of slide rules? And it's sort of, I think, like each one of us, as we're trying to get closer to our dreams, faces, and that is, I need something to change. I need a new perspective on doing stuff. And what it took to put Mike Collins there was an audacity of leadership. This guy stood up, this American president in the early 60s, back when I was just learning to walk. And he saw a new technology had come in. The Soviets were winning. The Soviets had launched Sputnik in 1957. Sputnik. I don't know if anybody here speaks Russian, but put is like a voyage. Sput is like a little voyage. So Sputnik is like a little Voyager. And so the Russians had launched little Voyager in October of '57, and then they'd launch Yuri Gagarin, the first human being, into space in 1961. And Kennedy recognized new technology, it's not a fad, it's not a transient thing. We need to not just adopt this new technology, we need to somehow turn it to our advantage. And the way to do that was to give himself and his business, his shareholders, an audacious, crazy goal. And he stood up in 1961, gave a terrific speech, but in the middle of it he said, "We choose to go to the moon." And not like we're hoping to go to the moon or we're planning to go to the moon, but actually we are going to change who we are. We're going to choose to do something that has never been done before. And not because it's easy, but because it is hard, you know, with a Boston accent. It was not an easy time. He wasn't all that popular at the time. But he recognized if you didn't challenge people and readily adopt this technology, they were going to get left behind. And incredibly enough, 8.5 years later, Neil and Buzz successfully landed. It was Buzz who took this picture. He's stepped forward into a clean spot, stepped back, got a nice imprint of his boot in the surface of the moon. But it wasn't done by Kennedy. It wasn't done by, you know, a policymaker. The actual work to do something that up until then had been impossible was done. Well, that's Neil and Mike and Buzz. And I mean, they're not even all that handsome, right? They're just three guys. Look at them. If any of them was walking around the show floor, you wouldn't even know who they were. But think of what those three guys accomplished by, number one, giving themselves an audacious goal and vision of the future, and then being willing to change radically. If you want to change anything, the thing you have to change the most is yourself. Think of how different they're willing to take a risk and to go do something that was technologically right on the hairy edge. And for me, these guys were hugely inspirational when I was that little kid growing up here just outside of Toronto. And I thought, okay, if they can do it, then why can't I do it? What's the only thing really stopping me at this point is me. So I thought, okay, they know how to fly. I don't have any money. How am I going to learn how to fly? So I hunted around. I found out about the Air Cadets. I joined the Air Cadets. When I was 15, I got my glider pilot's license. When I was 16, I got my powered license. 16 years old. It's really ridiculous in Ontario. You can actually get your pilot's license before you can get your driver's license. It's sort of like your mom has to drive you to the airport so that you can go fly an airplane. It's kind of funny. But so I was a pilot at 16, and then I wanted to serve the country because I'm so immensely grateful to be from this place. So I joined the Air Force. I went to the military academy. Oh, this is Helena. We met in high school down in Oakville. She's had multiple careers, but as Amir mentioned, she graduated from the Culinary Institute, #1 out of 450 students, and she worked as a professional chef when I was serving as an astronaut in Houston for a bunch of years. And we were at a good stage of life. I went through basic jet training. I was one of the very first, in fact, I did the very first F-18 intercept of Soviet bombers back when they were practicing attacking North America on a regular basis. It's pretty cool. We slept with our jets in northern Quebec, sleeping in a little building right beside the F-18s. And they were plugged in and ready. And if we detected that the Soviets were coming across the pole, the horn would go off. and you had to be flying, you had to be airborne in 12 minutes. From sound asleep to actually leaving the ground in 12 minutes. And then go out and race over the Atlantic and intercept the Soviets to see if they were going to attack this time or if they were just practicing. And so I did that for several years. Everybody here is at a slightly different stage of your life. Somewhere in between when you were forming your dreams and you get to execute and live your whole life. Everybody here is somewhere on that path. Family, kids, parents, work, all of it. And for Helena and I, we had 3 kids at that point. But my dreams were still just so strong and important that I recognized if I truly want to do what it is I want to do, I'm going to need more education. I'm going to need more technical skills. I asked to go to test pilot school, and Canada trains 1 test pilot a year. And they sent me down to the high desert in California. I flew 32 different airplanes that year. And then I became a test pilot for Canada. And one of the things we tested, F-18s are complicated technical machines, but if they go out of control, sometimes it's hard to get them back under control. And so I ran an F-18 test program. This is what that looks like.
There we go. Now, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that's enough of that. And I did about 125 departures with the F-18, and we redesigned it and changed its flight control laws, made it a safer airplane, because they've been crashing them all around the world where they fly those airplanes. And so I got another university degree, and then this appeared in the newspapers all across Canada. So you might remember, we used to have this thing called want ads. It's really kind of cute, you know, in your newspaper there, and you'd be reading your breakfast or reading over your breakfast and going, let's see, my job sucks. What else could I be doing? And architects, bakers, astronauts. And the Canadian Space Agency actually stuck this in every newspaper in Canada. And if you can't read it from the back, it essentially says, wanted astronauts. You needed to be a Canadian citizen, you needed to have a technical university degree, and you needed to be able to pass a really hard physical. And about 5,300 people applied, but because I had given myself a seemingly impossible dream with my life, and I had then every single day tried to make decisions to change who I was, to improve my skill set and really take advantage of all the new technology. I got to stick my hand up high, and they picked me and sent me down to Houston, Texas, with these 23 other little boys and girls from all around the world. Different languages, different religions, different cultures, but every single one driven by the idea that amazing things are possible if I can just change who I am enough to be trusted. If there's one sort of common trait of an astronaut, it's a perpetual dissatisfaction with your current level of competence. Because even if you're the best at something, just wait a couple months and you'll be rusty, or someone else will be better, or the regulation will change, or Trump will put tariffs on it, or something's going to happen. And you need to constantly be readapting and changing who you are if you want to be successful. And all of those 24 people realizing that if they just got good enough, then they'd be able to have a chance to do this.
12, 11, 10, 9, start, 2, 1, boost ignition, liftoff of the space center.
Yeah, it's louder than that. So I've had a chance to fly the space shuttle twice. Yeah, I think it's cool too. This is my second launch. In fact, I had a window seat there. It's an amazing thing to do. A brand new, I don't know, a brand new Ford Mustang with the Hemi engine, about 480 horsepower. Space shuttle, 80 million horsepower. 80 million horses. You can feel all those horses like jamming you up through the atmosphere. The power of it is staggering. Just brute force. We're burning fuel at 12 tons a second. But just a stupid way to do anything. Just brute raw force. Like we're going to look back 50 years from now and go, what were we thinking? What a crazy design. But at the time, the greatest flying machine ever built. And you go through the speed of sound. This vehicle shaking so hard in 4 seconds that you're going faster than Chuck Yeager. If you want to focus on the instruments, you got to grab onto a handrail and pull your head against it so your neck can soak up all the vibrations so you can even focus on the instruments in front of you. After 2 minutes, these big white solids, they've done their job. They've taken you from the beach in Florida and got you above the air. You're about 150,000 feet and about 5 or 6 times the speed of sound in 2 minutes. And then those white rockets, they explode off and fall into the ocean. And now it's just these liquid engines pumping fuel out of that gas tank. But now you just go faster and faster, and you get heavier and heavier and heavier, like 2 people lying on you, then 3 people, then 4 people lying on you, until it's hard to even like push your chest forward to breathe. The acceleration is so high, until eventually the vehicle's accelerating so hard, we have to bring the throttles back to idle to keep the shuttle from tearing itself to pieces. But after 8 minutes and 40 seconds, that human invention has taken you from Cape Canaveral, got you to perfectly the right height, exactly the right speed, and precisely the right direction, and the engine shut off, and you're weightless. I mean, if you ever get a chance, take a ride like that. It is spectacular human experience. But this is a question I want you to think about. What am I going to do? Imagine you had just flown this thing to orbit and you'd successfully gotten there. You defeated the risk that you'd been training for. And now suddenly you're weightless, orbiting the world at 8 kilometers a second, going around the world every 92 minutes. What would you do next? And of course, first you got to make sure the vehicle's healthy, there's no leaks. But what everybody wants to do, actually, can you shut these floods off for me? Just make it dark, please. What everybody wants to do is those things, is float to the window and for the first time in their life, actually see the world. And it is unbelievably gorgeous to come up on the coast of Canada, going 5 miles a second. There's, let's see, that's Vancouver Island and the Salish Sea in Victoria, and cloudy in Vancouver, crazy. And coming across the Rockies, suddenly you can cross Canada from Victoria to St. John's in 10 minutes. You come racing across the middle of the continent, and where there's Lake Michigan with Chicago, there's Lake Erie with Detroit and Sarnia, and then this to do it is the International Space Station. Biggest thing humanity has ever built off-world. It's a huge laboratory to study the universe with no air in the way, and to do experiments where there's no gravity. And of course, if you go around the world 16 times a day, then it's a tremendous platform to study and understand our world. And we've had people living on the space station for the last 25 years. And Canada built this big robot arm right there. that was built all across the country, put together in Brampton, and each piece of the station was assembled by that. But it's also just a fun place to be, where if you spill your water, it just floats there next to you. And so we spill our water all the time because it's like this solid balloon of liquid. You can pull your knees up to your chest and just do 100 somersaults. I mean, I wish I could like shut off gravity in here for the next 5 minutes. You would have a blast. Just this hall would be great. You could push off and just fly. You like someone just gave you a superpower. Everybody in here would be like an X-Man or Wonder Woman or something. It's just so cool. And then everybody'd throw up. And but it's just so much fun. It's also an interesting place to
Early
eat.
days of space exploration, food was mostly squeezed out of tubes and brought up in dehydrated packets. But today, we can have quite a variety of food. There's all sorts of things that we normally consume on Earth that we have here in space. We just need some minor adaptations. In the case of sandwiches, we had to substitute for bread. So we decided to use tortillas. But why? Mostly it's because bread makes crumbs. Okay, we got one tortilla. No, not away. Take my peanut butter, open it up. Can't rip it. Fortunately, we have space. They're attached by a tether so they don't go floating up. Take the scissors, cut open the peanut butter pouch. Peanut butter's open, squeeze it onto the tortilla, carefully. And now a little honey. Hey, I noticed something cool about the honey. Instead of the bubble sitting at the top, because there's no gravity to make it float up, the bubble is floating in the middle. Okay, all closed up, and the envelope peanut butter and honey is ready to eat. Not too bad.
Living in space, it's a fun place to be. We don't just make peanut butter and jelly or honey sandwiches. You can make a full tortilla if you're really clever and creative. How do you do salt and pepper without gravity? Obviously, you couldn't sprinkle it. It would just float everywhere. So we actually just use salt water, and you can squirt salt water on your food. And then for the pepper, we use olive oil with pepper in it. So you can just squirt some of the peppery oil on there. And I brought a Canadian treat up. We had maple cookies up on the space station as well. And it's an amazing place to be. To float to the window like Tracy's doing here, and the serenity of watching the whole world roll by underneath you is just so gorgeous and humbling. But it's also the kitchen, just like the business that everybody here is in, is the hub of the entire space station. It's actually physically in the middle, in node 1. And it's where discussions happen. It's where we mull over ideas. It's where we share cultural histories. We get together for a dinner a few nights a week when everybody's not too busy and use the cultural norm of our own little orbiting cafe as a way to figure out what we're all going to be doing next. Because dangerous things happen up there. Everybody here has a strong leadership position, whether it's running the entire business or running family or whatever. And I'm the only Canadian who's ever commanded a spaceship. It's a $150 billion asset. So I don't know how each of you addresses the leadership and the responsibility that you have. But for me, absolute number one is, what does success look like? What is the definition of victory? Why are we doing this? And what does success look like on a daily, hourly, monthly basis? Because if you can't clearly explain to each one of your employees, like, if today goes perfectly, what will we have completed? If you can't express that to your employees, they're going to make most of their decisions. First spacewalker. This is one of the coolest things that's happened in my whole life. To be able to put on this suit open the hatch and pull myself out into the universe. Like you feel so tiny in proportion to the enormous, gorgeous Earth, like a big bulging kaleidoscope of color and texture. But you're also separate from the Earth. So you're not even an Earthling anymore. Earth is just a planet over there, and you're somewhere else. And that you feel just so tiny, but at the same time, we are now doing this as a species. We are now capable of building machinery that will take us away from the planet and start to explore the rest of the universe in person. So there's this tremendous sense of what's happening historically. And at one point, you can see I have lights on my helmet, because when you go into the night side of the Earth, you want to be able to keep working. But at one point, I was riding with my feet clipped into the robot arm here, and so I shut the lights off so I could get my night vision like we just did in here. And while I was outside on my first spacewalk, we went through the aurora of the world. And this isn't like ChatGPT or something. This is what it looks like when you're a little kid from Sarnia, Ontario, and you're going through the northern lights, and they're pouring around you and around the ship. And they're super scientific. You know, it's electromagnetic energy from the sun being caught by the Earth's magnetic field and coming in at the poles and reacting with the atmosphere and causing the electrons. Talk a little bit about where we're going now. We'll open it up and see if anybody has any questions. We discovered something about the moon in the last few years because of some of our probes and what the early astronauts discovered. And that where Neil and Buzz walked at the equator, it's super dry. But if you go to the poles, the North Pole or the South Pole, there's always sunlight, so you got solar power, and the craters are always in shade, and they're full of water, ice. And by our best guess, there's about 400 billion liters of water frozen into the craters at the poles of the moon. So if you've got power from the sun and you've got water from the craters, then all you need is a good habitat and you can live there. I mean, it's sort of like, I don't know, like Barrie. It's just a place, you know, and you laugh, but I mean, 3 weeks ago, nobody could live in Barrie. Everybody would have died in one night, except we have technology. We just sort of take the technology for granted. We harnessed fire. We harnessed food production and storage. We know how to make clothing. We know how to make shelter. We have an integrated technological system that we take for granted to allow us to live in a place that would otherwise kill us. The moon is no different. It's just we have to decide, is this the moment in history when our technology is good enough? And because the moon has untold mineral resources and there's no life to disrupt, the moon is a dead planet, that's where everybody is headed now. All of the key countries that have space agencies. And the United States has built this rocket. Crew is already chosen and trained. What's really cool is in all of history, only 24 people have ever left Earth orbit and gone to the moon. 24 people, 12 of them walked on the surface. They were all Americans, but no Soviet or Russian, no Chinese astronaut, no Indian astronaut has ever managed to leave Earth orbit. The very first non-American to ever leave Earth orbit is going to be Jeremy Hansen from Ailsa Craig, Ontario. And it's because we have been working cooperatively, internationally for 60 years. It's because we have a terrific education system in Canada. We have brave young people like Jeremy, who served in the Air Force and who has a physics degree. It's a terrific example of what is possible. And I'm going to be super proud to watch Jeremy here in the next month or two go all the way to the moon and back and prove if that's a safe rocket for us to be able to start settling somewhere besides the Earth. But what's really changed is rocket technology. We now have semi-reusable rockets, which never happened before. And this thing is 100% reusable rocket. This piece gets you above the air and then comes back and you can use it again. And then this piece is your spaceship, but it's built tough enough to be able to land and get used again. So it radically drops the cost. It's called Starship, and it's huge. There's the space shuttle that I flew twice. There's the Saturn V that took Neil and Mike and Buzz to the moon. And then there's Starship, this gigantic.
We have liftoff.
So you know what you're looking at. That's the stage that gets you above the air. And then once it's pushed the top off, then it comes back and actually gets grabbed. And we've done that a couple times. And in fact, the next launch is going to be in about a month. The beauty of grabbing that is you don't have to put landing gear or wheels or something on it. You can keep it as light as possible. And then the top piece, we're still testing it so that we still land it in the water to keep everybody safe. But it's coming along really well. Okay, lights again. And that's happening right now. And one of the purposes of that new technology is to allow us to build the first settlement in human history. That's where technology is taking us. And it's been our pattern. We explore, we look what's there, we wait until the technology gets good enough, and then we move there and start making that part of the human experience. And that's where we are right now, with a solar-powered, local water-using human settlement to start making an Earth-Moon economic system. But moon, schmoon, who cares? What matters is that little, what matters is that little crescent up on the top. What matters is the Earth. And that new rocket will make launch into Earth orbit radically cheaper for us to be able to communicate and measure the weather and things. But you guys feed Canada. Like that's very much part of a measure of success of what every business in here is involved in. And the biggest challenge of our age is as our population levels off, and it's going to level off this century at about 9.5